Good morning, how are you? I'm good.
Might as well smile.
You have a call to order. Call to order.
Time is 7:42. Please put your cell phones on vibrate or turn them off, or be prepared to make a $5 Coke donation. The steward in your area will collect.
Reverend Newman. Reverend Newman. Mr. Newman. Reverend Newman. Can you give us a prayer, please? First of God, our Father, we come this morning thanking you for this another day, another opportunity to be in your presence. We ask you, God, our Father, to bless us this morning as we prepare to transact business. We pray, God, our Father, that we will be able to do business in a decent and respectful manner. We ask you, God, now to look down upon us and bless us. For this we ask in Christ Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can our individual stewards stand up? We recognize and announce the area in which you serve.
Tim Quinn, Secretary of State.
Cody Brown, Medical Center.
Yasser Lala, Medical Center.
Crystal here, Supervisor.
Jason Lake, FOD.
Miracle Lawn Medical Center. Martin Luther Medical Center.
Can you say your last name for me, please?
Lalla, Lala.
What's your first name?
Yasser, Y-A-S-I-R.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Take your narrative. Red. Got it. Jared Larry. As a steward, we also have Fern Moore from CWA.
I got her. I saw her. It was just the guy that was right after Crystal. I didn't hear what he said.
Ms. May, can you say about cell phones for those who came in late?
Yes, please, if you come in late, turn off your cell phone or put them on vibrate or be prepared to make a $5 Coke donation. The steward in your area will collect that $5.
Today's meeting is, really is for us to address attempt to amend bylaws, so to address some election issues, handle some election issues, and also attempt to amend the bylaws. So what I would like to do in the motion is that we suspend the normal order of business so that we may begin to address, hear those appeals, be presented with the amendments that we would like to be made. I prefer to go through the proper order of business because the financial report, executive report, and committee reports, and the president's report might explain a lot of things that the body might have questions on, rather than jump right into an issue. Well, I would say as I begin to explain what is the challenges, we'll explain what the issues are. I believe that now. And so when you, in essence, give your proposal, where we want to amend the bylaws in order for the election to take forth, we can put all that out. The election committee, it can be so. I would hope that the body would not concur with your proposal to move forward to skipping the regular order of business, because there is a purpose to going through that business, and it's not just because of the issues that we have today. That's all I'll say. Mike Hawk.
I would like to make a point of order to start with the regular business. I think we need to go into the issue along with Mr. Obama said to as well. And then move forward after that.
I just heard a phone.
David? I concur with that. You want to second it, Wayne? I second. I'm sorry. Read the minutes.
Okay, we got it.
Vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All those who oppose?
1, 2.
Well, give me a show of hands next time. All in favor, say, put your hands up.
In favor of what?
Regular
business?
Yes.
Regular.
And that's overwhelming. But all those who oppose, clearly, it's regular business, clearly passed.
What we we have, because I was kind of under the assumption that we were going to suspend regular meetings. So I did not type up December meeting minutes, but in December, the body was made aware of the fact that we do have a financial shortfall. At the time, there was $4,000 in the budget. Yes, sir?
No, I need to talk about that.
I want to address something she's saying.
That's fine. You can wait till after, that's fine.
Okay, excuse me.
Okay. During that meeting, it was also reported in December that the election committee would be here toward the end of the meeting to bring their tentative report of the election. There was also reported that there is the possibility from FOD that that OSU was going to be outsourcing, and it was going to be putting 700 jobs in jeopardy. So details on that were supposed to be forthcoming. We haven't gotten those yet. Marvin brought the issue of the policy is not, we don't have a policy in place in the medical center to view managers' disciplinary records. That's also to be forthcoming. There was a new program supposedly to add more than 100 new custodians in the New James, which is now down to approximately 20. I can tell. Different areas? Okay. I was going to say I was over to the New James Tuesday. It's a little difficult to tell if there are employees or not, because I'm not familiar if you guys have any type of, other than your uniforms, you can't really tell if they're contract employees or if they're union members. So that's for the New James.
There's plenty of employees in the New James.
Okay.
I know 14 more custodial workers are actually starting next week.
Okay, because like I said, I was over there Tuesday and spent most of the day over there, and in looking at the employees in the New James, I couldn't tell, if they were contractors or if they were our members.
Our members wear gray and black.
Okay,
Contractors normally wear a different color scrub.
okay.
If it's custodial workers,
So they would have on scrubs?
they wear scrubs most of the time.
Okay, so word to the wise, if we are in the James or in the medical center, look at the uniforms that the housekeeping for sure is wearing, and we can get a benchmark on whether or not our members are being outsourced unfairly. How's that? Okay. The majority of the meeting was taken up by the election committee. We did have we had a tentative election results that are out, which were posted to the web. Since then, the e-board met Thursday. Discussion continued on the election results. At that time, the three issues that the e-board addressed were, there was a gentleman, a Mark Eldridge, which was promoted out of the union. He was requesting that his dues be refunded. Contractually, if you are promoted out of the union, you have to notify us in writing to suspend your dues. He did not. It seems that he was promoted in June or July. He asked for his money back in December, which was going to be roughly $200. So the board voted not to refund his money. There was also a request from the Crawford Richland County AFL-CIO to pay the 2014-2015 dues that we pay per capita for the members, and votes comes to about $93. That was tabled for a later date because we had not decided on whether or not we were going to do it because we also have to pay Franklin County and Central Labor Body. So we are reassessing how much that money is. Thursday, the heat was broken. The furnace was off. There was to be somebody here Friday to fix it, James Howell, to fix the heat. The parts were going to be approximately, for the two parts that they were guesstimating to be replaced, it was going to be in the vicinity of about $350. That's $350. The majority of the meeting was taken up by the discussion on the election. The election committee brought their final certification. I do have a copy. I can have that copy and passed out for you so that you can review it. At the conclusion of that, the board did vote to accept the recommendation to certify the election with the exception of the treasurer, who did not receive a majority vote because there were 3 people running. That at that time, the appeal process went forward to bring it to the general body for recommendation. That's it. Do you want the
Final financial report will be available at the next meeting in February. And I also want to mention that February 1, I will be president and I will be the treasurer for an interim period of time. I would like to appoint a member I will show them, train them, and it probably will only be at the most 2 months, and you will be paid for your service. If you're interested, not a steward, then just call the union hall, leave your name and your number, and I will tell you how much the pay is. It's just part-time, just a few hours a week, maybe 4 or 5 hours a week that I will mention.
Yes.
Why can't it be that the next person in line, the next highest vote getter for the treasurer position, if the first person doesn't want or backs off of the treasurer position, then it goes to the next highest vote getter that was voted?
The election committee would address that.
We can't hear y'all back. You want me to answer that now? You want to answer it now?
Not now, Richard, not now. It will be answered.
Can you repeat the question so that, she's talking real low, can you repeat the question that you said to the
Come on, Dan.
She just said something that we couldn't hear.
Oh, myself? Yes, I'm
And you.
sorry. I have a soft voice.
Okay.
But what I was saying is that come February the 1st, I will become president. I can no longer be treasurer. I can't hold 2 jobs. Therefore, I will have to appoint someone for the interim until the issue with the treasurer is resolved. I would like to hire someone from the body, not a steward, that I can train. I will be there the whole time for them to do that work, and they will be paid. If you're interested, then call the hall, 294-5265, leave your name and your phone number, and then we'll talk. It'll only be a few hours a week. It won't be difficult or anything, but we have to have someone to do that job because I legally can't do both.
So do we have 2 people that's in the run, right?
Yeah.
Secretary Treasurer.
No. Well, yeah, for the treasurer. Acting treasurer.
Then why don't you train one of them?
We can't.
They're running for office.
Can't, because they're running for office. And that's like an advantage on that person. I already talked to Bill Bain, and who's our representative in Cleveland. and we discussed that, and I can't do that, I can't appoint anybody except for, and I want it to be a member, because I think we ought to share among ourselves our dues and not, keep it ourselves.
Yes, I can do that job because I have experience in cashier.
Hey, Lee, you call office on Monday. And so now,
I'll do that.
I know you will, but call them,
Yes, Dave.
Because there is no actual financial report to hand out, and I did miss last month's meeting, so that's how. I did send out an email formally requesting, and I would like to formally request again a itemized financial statement of what the union is spending, who they're paying, what they're being paid for.
and we'll meet about that.
Just to follow up what Mr. Gutierrez has stated, I know there has been myself and also another individual that has formally made a request. I requested back December 11th, and I still have yet to have a response to the itemized statement. The itemized financial.
It's on record.
And my request was sent out on December 15th.
There's a lot that's going on, as you know, with this
Correct.
race and everything, and I was working at the Secretary of State's office as well, full-time, and coming up here. And that's something that the next treasurer will be assigned to do, is to keep records, itemized records of everything. Thank you.
Yes, Dave.
To formalize things, I'd like to put what David said in the form of a motion, that the information he's requested be sent to David and the candidates involved, and in addition, include some information about the matter of the dues deduction thing we discussed last month, whether that's been resolved or just what states that's in, just as an update for the candidates we'll be voting for, not in a partial way, but in an impartial way, just to keep everyone abreast on top of the report at the next meeting. So if I could make that as a motion that the candidates and David get that information, I'd like to make that as a motion.
Anybody want to second it?
I didn't hear what the motion was, I'm sorry.
Think that, Dave.
The motion is for the information David just requested, plus an update on the dues situation, dues deduct situation we discussed last month. Be not only presented at the next membership meeting, but sent to David and the candidates who will be voting on, just to keep everyone updated.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All who oppose? Motion passed. Yes.
You're saying that people that are officers cannot be our treasurer?
No, people that are running
People running for the treasurer.
the treasurer's office.
I make a motion that if anybody from the body speaks, stand up and recognize so people can direct their earlobes. Because I got 50% hearing myself.
If the, my name is Darlene
What's your
Sunderland,
name?
Darlene Sunderland, Sue's life. If the people running for office cannot be treasurer, he is running for a position on the executive board.
No.
That doesn't count?
He doesn't work, he's not running.
Huh?
His area, as far as that's concerned, has been decided. We're talking about those
And we didn't even say anything that he wants to do.
I
treasurers.
just asked the question.
Got
Treasurers.
your pen?
Treasurers. Treasurers. That's what we work through. 100% certain, but the mic either walked away, disappeared, or something, so the mic is not here. So we're going to do the president's report and hopefully begin to talk about and allow the election committee to speak about the things that we need to address. We have been in the process of an election that has taken quite some time due to various reasons. This election has been,
Can you speak up, please?
this election has been, for lack of a better word, stressful, somewhat divisive. We still have to address issues that need to be addressed. As I spoke at the e-board meeting, there have been appeals. Appeals need to be addressed. Stated that we all, and many of us, are stewards. And when we serve our individual members, they have appeal rights. They often ask, what's the next step in the journey? What do we do next? Elections are designed in the same way. They have appeal processes, appeal rights. I stated to the executive board that when a person elects to take or exercise that appeal right, that should not cause ill will, should not cause division. They're just exercising their right. And so I wanted us to understand that. And so I asked all of us here, too, to understand that. There was talk about where we are in the dues situation, and to give a report back to the membership. I believe that we have stated at several meetings, not just this one or the last one and the one before that, that we had reached a deal. And that deal was for them to refund back to the local $37,000. We're about to receive that check. That deal has been signed off, vetted back, been to the district, been to Washington, D.C. It has been approved. So basically what we're waiting on is to receive the check. But we believe that that will be sometime in the next week, not the week after, but this most certainly is on its way. During this election, there were some appeals, and there also was the treasurer's spot. The way the vote count ended up being, no individual received 50% of the vote, or more than 50% of the vote. So due to election rules and bylaws, there has to be a runoff in that spot. And I'll temporarily stop and allow the election committee chair to speak to that particular issue and what we like to do to handle it.
So do you want me to give a full report now, or do you want me to
Give a full report.
Who's your steward? Make her pay double. My name's Matthew Wyman.
Tim, collect.
My name's Matthew Wyman. I'm an election committee chair. Before I start, I'd like to say a thanks to Demita Clark, Stephanie Johnson, and Ronnie Ellison for their participation. As the President said, it has been a stressful election for a few reasons. One, we got a late start, and as many of you know, and hopefully all of you know, the bylaws have certain timelines that should have been met, although we did fail to meet a couple of those. we stepped into the game after nominations had already been conducted and received some instruction from a gentleman in Chicago by the name of Ron Hotz, who guided us and gave us some information, gave us references by the way of the Constitution that were specific to the election process, along with any federal law. And it's an actual manual. I'll go through right now the information that I provided to the board a couple days ago. But first, I'd like to go through briefly the challenges that were raised so everybody who is present today is aware of them. One is that nominations were late. The other was that vote was late. And the majority, the biggest issue was that people who claimed after that the vote had occurred that they wanted to vote but did not receive a ballot. Anybody want to add anything before I move on?
Yeah, a lot of people didn't receive their ballot.
Right.
I called in to try to get them to get my address. I didn't get a chance to vote. There's quite a few people that didn't get a chance to vote. So, I think that should be a big issue too. Because I have planned to vote on certain people, but I didn't get nothing to vote with. I called in, tried to get my address put in. They said, okay, I'll send it out. I didn't get it. So there's quite a few people that didn't get a chance to vote. So I thought I'd say that.
Well, wouldn't that be the steward's responsibility of...
I'll address that
Okay.
in the points that I was planning on making, so I'll jump around a little bit, so be patient with me, but there'll be time intermittently through the report to ask any questions, so thank you for that. I'm gonna read from that reference material. The other challenge was past practice, because the bylaws require a mail-in ballot, which is why we did it that way. But in the past, my understanding is ballot boxes were taken to different work units. First off, this is from the federal regulation in that reference material. Every bona fide candidate shall have the right, once within 30 days prior to a union election, to inspect a list containing the names and last known addresses of all members of the union who are subject to a collective bargaining agreement. And it goes along with something that doesn't really address your issue. The other portion is notice of the election must be mailed to each member at his or her last known home address at least 15 days prior to the election. If in a mail ballot election, the ballots themselves serve as notice, the ballots must be mailed at least 15 days prior to the date when they must be mailed back in order to be counted. It worked out where that time frame spanned over Thanksgiving, so there were almost a full month. I think it was 23 days, if I'm not mistaken, between when they were mailed out from Chicago, was where all the ballots were printed, prepared for mail, and then they were sent out to the last known address. I think because of the past practice, it seems to the committee that the understanding that people would have the opportunity to vote in person has diminished the capacity of maintaining a quality membership list with up-to-date addresses. I'm willing to bet that once ballots started going out, people's hopefully expectations started changing as they thought people are getting ballots, but I didn't get one. At some point, you had to say to people who aren't even in part of the unit, you got to stop sending out ballots, because it's put a great deal of stress on them. We ended up sending out just a little over 1,100 ballots To my understanding, the count was about 112 that were returned. Some folks who did recognize that their address was incorrect were able to contact the committee by way of the local's office, get their address changed. Once the election committee received that information, it went to Chicago so that they could then send another ballot to the updated address. There's some other folks who became card-carrying members between the time the nominations went out and then when we sent out the ballots. So, although your concern is duly noted, sir, there were some opportunity. I'm not sure if you reported the same, of what knowledge you had, so I mean, it's not personal. But some people did, not nearly as many as should have, obviously, because we got 100 and some odd ballots returned. And no, that's not a good thing. But really, the main issue that the committee sees is the membership list. Moving forward, the board and the committee and everyone who was present discussed creating some kind of mechanism to make sure that the membership list is maintained on a month-to-month, quarter-to-quarter, whatever kind of basis, to make sure that this doesn't happen again if we continue to do mail-in ballots. And that's an issue that may be raised in the future. But for now, the only bylaw, I'll pause right there. Go ahead, ma'am.
I just want to put on record, my name is Lynn Cornegay. I am the unit steward in the building in which he works. I was very vigilant in working on with the election. In their break room, they had the postings. Kevin and Crystal several times came in the building and campaigned in the building. So I also spoke with plenty of the employees in the building. If you didn't get your ballot, call the union hall and get on the list so that you could receive a ballot. So to say now that you didn't receive your ballot when I actually worked that building to make sure that everyone had a chance to vote is null and void to me, and a smack in my face to say that I didn't do my job when I know I'm a darn good steward and I work hard in that building.
You did. You told me. You told me I was going hard, and I did it. Yeah, you're right. You told me, and I did what you told me. Point of order. I wasn't no smacking your face. You told me. I did what you told me.
Okay, go ahead, man.
The bylaws, there are certain portions here that should be addressed because the challenges were made to specific bylaws. This is Article 16, under elections, of course, Section 1. Nominations shall be held, and I'm going to paraphrase, nominations shall be held at the September membership meeting of the election year, and 15 days notice is required, or by address, last known address. Section 2, election of officers and board members shall be conducted by secret mail ballot in the month of October. That was the timeline that we missed because of, I think the committee was put together the end of October, I want to say. And Section 3 will bring us to the need for a notification of a bylaw change. Section 3 reads, the nominee in any election receiving the majority of the votes first shall be declared elected. If no nominee has a majority of the votes on the first ballot, the vote shall be taken again, and the two nominees having the greatest number of votes on the first ballot shall be the only nominees on the second ballot. Now, all we can do now as far as bylaw changes is provide notification to the body that language will be put together, and then we will vote on that specific language on the following membership meeting. So the proposed bylaw change is generally this. In the case of the need of a runoff, which is the language that the election training in Chicago had mentioned as a runoff, in this particular situation, adding to that section that in-person secret balloting could be allowed so that we don't send out more mail ballots. And the reason for that is because it costs money. Money, as you know, we don't have. Yes, sir.
Okay, when doing a bylaw change, and you're going to be doing that, what percentage of the union members have to vote to make the bylaws actually?
I'll read it to you, sir. Thank you. These bylaws may be altered, amended, repealed, or suspended at a meeting of the local by a 2/3 vote of the membership present, provided that notice of any proposed alteration or amendment of the bylaws shall have been read at the previous membership meeting.
Well, okay, there's 2/3 of the members here.
Present at the time of the vote,
Not-
yes.
So the bylaws don't speak on the total number of union members speaking on the bylaw change.
Right. Which is why the notification that we're doing now is critical. And it's good that there's a lot of people here. I think that the word can be spread that a bylaw change or amendment is in the midst for the next membership meeting.
I see that awfully strange because for the reason is that you should have more members, when you're doing a bylaw change, you should have more members voting on it to make a change, the total membership. But I know that's
The bylaw, my suggestion would be to take it to the board and then,
No, I understand what you're
and then
saying.
they can propose to change the bylaws as they
Right,
said,
right.
change the bylaws.
do we have-
I understand what you're saying.
Do we have a constitutional, do we have a bylaw committee? Constitutional change?
You have a bylaw committee, no. But,
That's where we can change things if we want to change things.
well, what happens is the executive board meeting, and you're going through that process now, whenever there's expected to be a change to the bylaws, which is what Matt is speaking to, you have to come to the membership meeting and make that notification, which is what you're receiving from Matt. And then the next meeting, hopefully you go out and speak to it in the bylaw.
Okay, so basically you don't have the bylaw committee.
There's not one specific called the bylaw committee, no.
To my understanding, that's why I mentioned you take whatever potential changes that you see fit to the board, because without a specified committee of a bylaw committee, because I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about,
yeah.
there's a different,
Right.
they have a bylaw committee in a different organization.
It's a different agenda. Maybe we could create a
Right.
bylaw committee from the membership, actually do bylaw changes, so we can bring it back to the membership, and then we can vote on it possibly like we're doing now. Because we don't have a bylaw committee to study some of the stuff that we need. We can't change it.
I understand what you're stating, but right now what is occurring
I know.
is speaking
I
directly to
understand.
what we need to do.
It's
in
a
order
process.
to the election.
Yeah, I understand.
Thank you.
Past practice, I had already mentioned before, which is why we need, depending upon what happens today with the decision that we all will hear make on if the whole election should be run over. It may be prudent for us to make sure that if we like past practice, we do a bylaw change. If we don't, we can leave it as it is. But the time really, now I'm going off my report right now, the time is now, when we have all these issues that are being raised, and they're all valid, right? Nobody's concerns are invalidated because of where you work or because of what you do. We're all equally important. That's what's great about a democracy. That's why I thank veterans for sacrificing themselves for the greater good. And there's a lot of folks in here that do the same thing for the people at their work unit, for the local as a whole. And I want to show my respect and my admiration for those people who are willing to put themselves in the forefront and take criticism, but also lead the organization. I don't have, I'm not a candidate. But one thing that I do know, and I'll close with this. Right now, it doesn't matter to me who wins. Whether or not you think I'm giving a biased report, I can tell you you're wrong. But what I know that we need right now, over the course of the last year, what has happened with the death of our president, we need strong leadership moving forward. There's a lot of issues that we know right now we have an opportunity to fix them.
All right.
Whether or not we think who did what in the past is of no consequence. The time is now. We need strong leadership. That concludes my report unless anybody has any questions. Yes, sir, in the back.
What kind of procedures can we go through to make sure that you finalize that next election?
Well, one is the election committee by the bylaws is supposed to be a standing committee, which requires them to meet quarterly, whether or not it's an election year. So that would help. There is, and this is some suggestions and some discussions that we had, what I'm about to say, with the executive committee, was implementing the use of a communication committee, which is in the bylaws as a standing committee, and also the membership mobilization committee, which we could utilize to develop a strategy to make sure everybody's information is as up-to-date as reasonably possible. It's everybody's responsibility to make sure that we all have good information here. You never know what tragic event may occur where we need to rise up in an expedited manner. So it's not just about the vote. It's about the we. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for it.
Point of order. Also, is that if you don't change the bylaws, committees like you're talking about, is not, but if you change the bylaws, it becomes part of policy. Okay? So we can get the committee, but we need to change the bylaws.
In certain situations, that may be true.
Because all other stuff don't count.
But in my experience, sometimes you can make the bylaws too specific, where the will of the people, it depends. It depends how specific you want to get, but whatever happens, it doesn't matter to me.
But
We just got to have a good list.
You don't have the bylaws. All the stuff you're talking about, you got to go by rules and regulations, and you got to go by the bylaws.
Well, one thing I will say is a standard operating procedure can be developed that wouldn't necessarily be in the bylaws, but it would be rules of order, so that then you can say, we're going to follow these rules of order, and it would more easily be changed. You don't want to wait a month or two to change the bylaws in some situations, but I understand where you're going. Thank you, Mr. President. Oh, okay.
Matt has explained why we are hearing the issues. The next thing that we want to do, he also spoke to the challenges, the appeals that were made to the election. We're going to allow 3 speakers. We're going to do a convention style. One, I absolutely ask that everyone respect the person speaking. Don't interrupt. It's not the time to ask questions. It's time to listen. Often we go to a national convention and there is an appeal made. There are 2 podiums in the middle of the floor. One podium is for those who are for that particular appeal. The other podium is for those who are against that appeal. They often have speakers then speak to why they think that appeal should be upheld. We don't have a whole bunch of podiums. So all of them are going to speak from this here podium. Normally they line up behind it, you can kind of see and gauge, wow, look at the support that appeal has. Well, our hall doesn't lend for you to be able, for lack of a better word, have that theater. So I'm going to ask that you kind of remain in your seat. If you think you know a reason you would like to speak against, maybe you can find anybody. So, yes, shit happens. But I thought that these places,
I'll do it again.
we'll have Matt come back up and explain the appeal. But there will be only and 3 speakers to the appeal. And really, you're answering with 1 vote. There will be 3 speakers who will speak, who wish to get up in regards to, to support the appeal, and then there will be 3 speakers who get up who are against the appeal. You will be given 4 minutes.
Why is that?
Because they would, as I stated before, you would normally be in a line. So the speakers are members.
You said 1 and then 2?
No, I said 3.
You said 1 for...
Well, speakers normally are not picked out. You can get up and speak yourself if your group decides you are the one they like to speak. People, I'll say it again, and David has been there to see it. At the convention,
You see it too, but it don't make sense.
it makes sense if you don't want it to make sense, but it makes
No,
sense.
it don't make sense.
They are going to speak, they're going to speak to their support of the appeal, or they're going to speak to their support against the appeal.
Okay, totally, you're gonna have 6 people.
No.
3, 4, 3 again.
That is correct.
So 6 people you're gonna have.
Okay,
in total.
I have a question.
Yes.
Isn't the election committee to be in charge of this, so wouldn't Matt be the one to determine what the appeal is and...
Matt is going to explain the appeal. He's coming back to do that, but he will not explain, he does not say how it will be heard in that matter.
It's a matter of who runs, to answer your question. It's a matter of who is supposed to be running the meeting, the regular membership meeting. So it's not, because it's not an election or referendum, it's an appeal. And I spoke to Ron Hans in Chicago about it the other day just to make sure, and Kevin is aware of the same. So that's why Kevin is performing his duty as president and operating the appeal. So long as it's equal and fair, democracy will be served. That is what the appeal basically is. The question is to the body, has democracy been served based upon the challenges that were raised, the outcome of the vote, or has it not been served, and should the vote be, full election be ran again? So I'm not the guy. Not the guy. So the reason why I gave that the in-depth report I did today, the in-depth written report provided by the whole committee a couple weeks ago, is in preparation for any future events like the one we're going to have right now, so that as many people as is possible can understand the topics at hand, and we can decide how to proceed as a body to make sure democracy has been served. Is there questions about what we are appealing?
In the corner.
Yes. Back here?
Yeah, why are we waiting to vote? Why can't we just vote right now? Does everybody not know the circumstances why we're voting? If we don't, we can vote right now.
Well, if you
Like
make a
most
motion,
people that have to go do stuff, we can vote right now. Does anybody not know the circumstances why we're voting? Why can't we vote right now?
Can we repeat the motion?
thank you. We all know why we're here. I motion we vote now. There is no sense for us to come up here and make speeches. We all know, let's vote now.
Oh, I'm sorry, I keep stepping on your foot.
All those in favor of not hearing speakers, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. All right. We'll move forward with the vote. There is a box over at the back table there. You see that? Will you do me a favor? Open that box and try to fill it over so they can see that it's empty and nothing's in it.
The other thing is, if there is anybody who's in here right now that knows that they are not a member who has voting rights, you might want to tell them to leave. Right. Just your meeting, but I'm just saying. Because that'll be the next challenge.
Anyone who is not a member, one, you cannot vote. That the group is not actually that you leave, but we'll take that up. You tell that anyone who is not able to pass the motion, we'll let that be a motion.
My motion.
I second.
Anyone who is not a member, will you please leave?
No motion needed. You can't vote if you're not. That's not, for them not to be here. I make the motion that if you are not a member, that you cannot partake in this election, nor can you be in the premises of us voting to ensure that you do not pass a ballot.
I got one question. Hey, I got a question. Are y'all saying that if you can't vote, if you're not a card carrier member, you can't vote for this? Now, when we have had all these meetings, nobody has ever questioned whether or not, when we vote to pass or not pass something, whether or not an individual is a card carrier or a non-card carrier member. And for the purposes of this meeting, I believe, I'm here for just to represent the people, just so y'all know that. I'm here to represent the people. But for the purpose of this meeting, and everybody knows this here, everybody sitting here knows it. When we go to vote for stuff, nobody ever sits down, nobody ever questions who's a card carrier member and who's not a card member, carrier member. And when it passes or when it doesn't pass, it's fine. So I'm just throwing that question out there because that has been the practice of this whole day.
How do you know that? If you check the list.
We need to have a membership list here, right back here.
Order. We asked everyone who came in the door to sign a membership list. One, that list is going to be sent to the district that will state who was there voted. So it's a very important one that you did sign. And so that's over at the back table. So that will move forward and go back with what we have to report.
I respond to you saying that I agree with you 100%. However, there was never an election. And so now things are being done exactly by the bylaws they have not been. And so that's where this comes into play. And I understand, believe me, it can be like, okay, why all of a sudden now? All of a sudden now is because we're trying to do it procedural.
Right.
And so that's where we are right now. And we're trying to make some changes. And surely this is the first step, so it's even more confusing.
You said there's never been an election committee? Not
Official.
Not true. Standing. Not true.
Standing.
Not true.
Okay, I've been a 26 years, 30 years.
Matter of fact, just talk to Marty Brown.
Marty, I worked with her too.
She was on the committee with me when we did.
Well, whenever, okay, but then let me...
I just want everybody to know, I'm just clarifying for people. Again, I'm here to represent the people.
Can you turn down a member?
Order! Order!
Members have to respect which committee, and that's the order committee. There was a committee for an election, but not a standing committee that met quarterly for the bylaws. And now we have a standing committee that we would like to follow the bylaws and change things to be made. Thank you.
I got a question. I've been posed a question by a few members over on this room. What exactly are we going to be voting on now? Exactly. Yeah, can we have some clarification, please?
Here's what you will be voting on, right? For or against a new election. That's what you're voting on. So if you want a new election, you check for, you don't, against.
Excuse me, point of order, we need a motion to extend. You got 1 minute. Wayne Crawford and who?
Wayne Jones.
Thank you.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Kevin, I got a question.
Motion passed. Wait a minute.
The point of order is that after we're done with the voting and the results are there, where do we go from there?
What is it? The next step, if there has to be a next step? Well, that'll be decided by, it's not decided. If the people who are making appeals, they can appeal to the district. But we are trying to handle it right now with the membership.
Is that the way they do appeal, by coming here and doing it that way? Is that proper?
It must come to the membership. Must. Membership is who they are. They actually run things. It must come to the membership.
Do you send this to the,
They will be informed what took place today. Condition will be informed what took place today. They
you
will,
send it to the,
it will go to the district.
that's what I'm saying.
I thought I said that before.
No,
I'm sorry, Steve, but I thought I did.
Okay,
It will go
just
to the
clarification, I didn't know the next step.
They will know what we voted today.
Okay.
There are people that are antsy, and I know they got other things to do.
I tried to make it sure.
Yeah.
What we need to do is we can line up in some orderly fashion, move over, you see where the meeting is, you can cast your vote.
You have a question over
I have a
here.
question.
Oh, yeah, question, yes.
So let me get this straight. We're voting yes if we want a new vote, and we're voting no if we want it to stand?
No, you got to reverse.
If you don't want another election.
Wait,
Yes, if you don't want another election, no. If you want yes, if you want another election. Yes, I want a new election. Well, I'm a minister. Okay, but that's all I want to add. Right. Or a new election.
Yes.